Better not let him.
Good evening and welcome to the regularly scheduled Celina Board of Education meeting for January 11th, 2021. This is an organizational meeting of the Celina Board of Education followed by a regular meeting directly thereafter. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business. It is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. I'd like to invite you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Summer, roll call, please.
Mr. Sell.
Here.
Mr. Fleck.
Here.
Mrs. Gingrich.
Here.
Mr. Huber.
Here.
Mrs. Voorhees.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Summer. All are in attendance. At this time, we are ready for elections of officers for president. Call for nominations.
I'll nominate Mr. Flatt.
I will second that. Roll call, please. Are there any other nominations? Mr. Summer?
Okay. Mr. Huber.
Yes.
Mr. Sell.
Yes.
Mrs. Voorhees.
Yes.
Mrs. Gingrich.
Yes.
Mr. Fleck.
Yes.
Item B for vice president.
I'll nominate Ms. Gingrich.
I'll second that.
There's a nomination by Mr. Huber, seconded by Mrs. Voorhees. Roll call, please.
Mr. Huber.
Yes.
Mrs. Voorhees.
Yes.
Mr. Sell.
Yes.
Mr. Fleck.
Yes.
Mrs. Gingrich.
Yes, I guess.
Yep.
You're allowed to vote for yourself, it's okay.
Whatever.
This time we're ready for the oath of office for the president and vice president. Mr. Summer?
Thank you. Have you both stand up. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the State of Ohio and the Constitution of the United States, and that you will faithfully perform and discharge your duties as President and Vice President of the Board of Education of the Celina City School District located in Mercer County, Ohio? Yes. Congratulations.
Customarily, I would pass the gavel and the seat, but since we're socially distanced, I think we're okay.
Yes.
And the gavel passing is only customary.
All right. We'll move on to item B in the organizational meeting agenda. And I'd entertain at this time a motion to approve the agenda, set the agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay.
I got Mr. Sell and Ms. Voorhees.
Take your pick.
All right,
So who do you give it to?
Ms. Voorhees.
Okay.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Sell.
Yes.
Mrs. Voorhees.
Yes.
Mr. Huber.
Yes.
Mrs. Gingrich.
Yes.
Mr. Black.
Yes. At this time, we'll appoint the board liaisons. I believe everyone is going to be staying in their respective role that they were from last year, which we have as Mr. Sell from legislative, Mr. Huber for tax abatement. I have Ms. Voorhees for community.
Yes.
I have Ms. Gingrich for Head Start, and I'll be jumping into the student achievement role. Is there any discussion or objections to those?
That's good.
Good to me.
Okay, moving forward with the consensus agenda for organizational procedures. What would that be, 7 there? Motion to set those.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Huber?
I'll second it.
Gingrich?
Quick question.
Yes, Mr. Song.
The 8th of February seems earlier than normal. There's a reason for that. Is that because of the holiday?
That is correct. There's a holiday that falls on the third Monday. Since that's a holiday, we'll go to the day, or the week prior to that, You'll see all the other dates are on the third Monday.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Moving through here, we have, in the past, I'm not sure how much you guys got into it, some fairly boilerplate issues authorizing the treasurer and authorizing the superintendent, as well as the board service fund. These are Ohio Revised Code items. Pretty standard. Is there any conversation with anything on the board or on the agenda there?
I would ask Mr. Summer on section B, is there anything out of the ordinary that we are facing at this time?
No, there is not. This is all
As far as our
routine.
investments go and all of our
Other
accounts?
than that we're not earning any money on them, but.
Yeah, well, what else is new with that? So there's nothing new, thank you.
No.
Okay.
Any other questions, concerns? Anything for the good of the order? Looking down letter E, any removal items from the consensus agenda to entertain at this time? Hearing none, we'll call roll on approval of the consensus agenda items. Mr. Summer?
Mr. Huber,
Yes.
Mrs. Gingrich,
Yes.
Mrs. Voorhees,
Yes.
Mr. Sell,
Yes,
and Mr. Flack.
Yes. As there was no removal from the consensus agenda, we'll move down to letter H, and I think the most effective way of doing this would be, is anyone here this evening accepting healthcare or dental coverage?
No.
No.
That's a no for me. That is all 5 board members rejecting healthcare, RX, and dental. Mr. Summer?
Thank you.
At this time, we stand adjourned from the organizational meeting. And we will move right into the regular scheduled board meeting. We'll go ahead and call this to order. Mr. Summer, would you please call roll for this organizational meeting this evening?
this is the regular meeting.
Mr. Sell,
Here.
Mr. Flack,
Here.
Mrs. Gingrich,
Here.
Mr. Huber,
Here.
Mrs. Voorhees.
Here.
The agenda was sent out several days ago. You've all taken a look at it, hopefully. I'd entertain a motion to set the agenda at this time.
I'll make motion.
Second.
Mr. Huber, Mr. Sell.
Okay, Mr. Huber,
Yes.
Mr. Sell,
Yes.
Mrs. Gingrich,
Yes.
Mrs. Voorhees,
Yes.
Mr. Flack.
Yes. Reception of public, they are not here this evening, although number 3, Dr. Ken, did you want to say something with that?
Just a few words. January is the school board recognition month. So certainly for your fine service this past year, we want to recognize that and thank you for giving so much of your time and efforts towards the district to the students. Thank you there. You do have a certificate in front of you along with some chocolates to enjoy. So a small token, but we thank you greatly.
My wife appreciates it.
Yes, same here.
At this time, letter B, or number 5, look for a motion to set the consensus agenda for this evening.
I'll make the motion.
Ms. Gingrich,
Second.
Mr. Sell on the second. And Mr. Sommer, whenever you're ready, sir.
Before you move, Mr. Summer, I did want to make note that we do have an addendum, letter C7. That's a separate page there for you. We'll get to that when we get to that section.
That's
Thank
the
you.
superintendent's report.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Sommer, whenever you're ready,
All
sir.
right, the first item I have is approve the minutes of the December 21st, 2020 meeting. Approve the December financial report showing 2.29 million in revenue and 3.21 in expenditures. Approve the investment control report as of December 31st, 2020 with an ending balance of 8.24 million. Asking you to approve the December 2020 SM2 report. Also approve the December 2020 checks written for 3.024 million. Item number 6 is to approve the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor. And this one is for the school district. Item 7 is the same resolution, but it's for the TriStar bond levy, which is for all 4 counties that the school districts are located in. Any questions on any of that?
I have kind of a general question about our tax income. I see that property taxes are obviously going up. And in general terms, are we going to benefit by the same percentage that the state is predicting the increase? How does that work?
Well, with the increase in valuation in this triennial update, we are firmly entrenched on what they call the 20 mil floor.
Right.
That's the lowest that the county will collect. So yes, we will see some increase, but it's not going to be the magnitude of 16 or 17%, which valuations
Right.
increase. I will tell you that the one thing, and I told this to Dr. Ken, is the emergency levy that we just approved last year early was approved at 11.1 mils. The county auditor says we're going to collect 10.4, so that gives you an idea how much evaluations went up. Because we're only going to collect the same amount we
Right.
passed it for, but instead of 11.1, it's 10.4.
So the effective millage became 10.4.
Correct.
That's quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, it is.
That's a decent chunk.
But that also gives you an idea how much valuations did go up.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so for anyone watching, if valuations go up on certain things, not all things, there's several pots that the
Correct.
schools collect in. For example, the levy that was passed back in November, even if valuations go up, we voted on a dollar amount that the
Correct.
school district is collecting. So even if home values go up, a collection, so to speak, go down. So the amount you voted on is the amount we will.
correct. That is correct.
Thank you, Mr. Summer.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Treasurer's report? Okay, Dr. Ken, letter B, superintendent's report.
The Assistant Superintendent's report there for classified personnel. We have there asking you to approve the hire of Rachel Kaiser, teacher assistant at the middle school. She has completed her probationary period.
Okay.
Moving on to the superintendent's report. We have 3 substitute teachers that we'd like you to approve. Alicia Hensley, Braden Tuttle, and Jessica Yoder. As we're talking about substitutes here, you may have seen the governor had signed off that now we can use substitutes that do have a high school diploma, pass their background checks, and they're able to get licensure from the Ohio Department of Education. So it was reported at 10 o'clock this morning, the Mercer County ESC did have 63 interested individuals already. So that would certainly help out with our sub shortage due to the COVID.
Was that is that going to expire, or is that now in law?
That will expire at the end of this school year.
Okay, but there's a potential, if it works out well, potentially to maybe see something like that going forward.
That is correct. Item C2, asking you to approve a half-year contract for Michael Eilerman. He's taking over the IT cybersecurity teaching position at TriStar. And then number 3 goes along with that, the 7 extended days for that teaching position. Numbers 4, 5, and 6 are all deduct days. 1 for Aaron Weigel, 1 for Jamie Gunmiller, and 1 for Kelly Black. Item number 7, asking you to approve the following personnel for supplemental contracts. Ryan Jenkins, Jason Andrews, Derek Wenning, Tyler Folks, David Hookey, Kyle White, Michael Eilerman, and also from the addendum, Eric Wagner for the head varsity track position. Item number 8, asking you to approve the following people activity programs. Derek Waterman, Bryce Modern, Laura Gurman, Jim Kimmel, Stuart Kinney, and then the 3 volunteers for softball, Nick Archer, Phil Schumann, and Jim Gurman.
Any questions for Dr. Penn on the superintendent report? Just making sure that we are keeping an eye on the addendum there. Just an additional co-chair Wagner. Dr. Penn, why don't you walk us through resolution, the school year calendar then?
The first resolution there to approve the 21-22 school year calendar. Now, the main difference from the current year calendar to next year's school calendar is that we are looking to end the first semester before Christmas break. So there will be fewer days in the first semester, but many other neighboring districts have done the same practice. The one big issue I think it resolves is not having students come back after being away for 2 weeks and having to take final exams. They're able to get those exams in before the break.
The last time that was discussed though, Dr. Ken, there was a substantial difference in academic days that a student would have between first and second to the tune of like 11 days. And there were a lot of teachers saying that students in my first semester chemistry class will get a lot less instruction than students in my second semester chemistry class. Valid?
Now with chemistry, that's a year-long course, so that
Well,
really doesn't have, but let's say we do have semester courses.
Right.
The high school is looking at the schedule, so there may be that we cut out a period out of the first semester to make the class periods longer, so they will have a more equivalent set of minutes.
Hours rather than days, or minutes rather than days.
Correct, there are so many hours that are required for a class per semester, so we have to make sure that we do meet those minimums.
Do you know what the day disparity would be if we go to ending the calendar year, this academic year, first semester before Christmas?
16 days.
Was it 16?
Yeah. It's right at the bottom of the calendar, it says student days.
Thank you.
Okay, that's quite a few.
One correction, January, there is no Christmas break days. That's a Martin Luther King Day, that's highlighted. They just need to remove the Christmas break legend. It was probably on there because it became a service day, it looks like. For the 3rd.
Correct, that would be an in-service day.
Yeah, so there's no
Okay.
Christmas break days, but that's still on the legend for that month.
Gotcha, okay.
And I would reiterate, if it's 16 days, to me, that's 3 academic weeks that students will have a difference in instruction, just expressing some concern. That's quite a few days.
Dr. Penn, I noticed that there was no scheduled 2-hour delays. That's obviously a major thing that happens in our district. Have those just not been set yet? Or are we trying to do more in-services rather than the delays? What's the deal there?
Actually, as we get to negotiations, we'll set in looking at adding a couple in-service full days instead of the 2-hour delays. I think that's a piece that we've been hearing community members, so that would make things a lot easier for us with scheduling with our child care to do away with the 2-hour delays. So we are looking at ways that we can build that in-service, that professional development into the school day calendar, add a couple full days instead of the 2-hour delays.
Believe it or not, I've heard that. Perhaps one of the biggest complaints is, can we just take a Monday here or a Monday there rather than every month doing the 2-hour delays? I think it's easier to get grandma, grandpa, or neighbor, or take a day off yourself on a Monday that you know is coming versus, 6 or 7 2-hour delay days. Any other questions as we look at the 21-22 calendar? This is attachment 3. And if,
I really appreciate the administration changing that 9 weeks breakdown so it ends before Christmas break. That's something that's been talked about for many years, I know, so. I agree.
If anyone at home is wanting to see this, if you go on celinaschools.com or .org, and click on Board of Education, Board Information, and then select today's date, you can look at this. So I know as a parent, these are pretty important calendar dates and stuff like that. Assuming these are approved, as I believe it seems they will, you can kind of go ahead and get those locked in for you and your family. I know we're all scrambling every August trying to remember when school starts again, but these are going to be locked in, so you can go ahead and do that. And we're just hoping they're locked in. Obviously, this past year we had a little bit of a difference, but we're going to hope that that's not going to be the case this year. Any other questions on the calendar? Let's jump ahead to the Head Start report.
The Head Start has the monthly report there in attachment number 4. The other piece here with Mercer County Head Start, they are requesting your approval to carry funds over from fiscal year 20 to fiscal year 21, and the total amount $74,806. Now those are some of the unspent COVID relief dollars, and also that came from the CARES Act, and also almost $38,000 in quality improvement funding.
Is there a limit to how long those funds can be carried over?
At this point, there is not. Certainly the limit is we have to come back and ask for approval. And not only approval here, but also Chicago and also their council as well.
Okay.
TriStar. TriStar report.
Under the TriStar reports, we have 3 donations. $1,000 from Armcorp Construction. That is the 3rd installment from their commitment. $500 from the Kenfeld Group. $500 from K&L Tractor Sales. And $500 from J&M Manufacturing. Now those last 3 are all for the TriStar FFA for FFA jackets.
It must be pretty expensive jackets. Do you know how many that is purchasing?
I do not.
Just curious. That's good that we have FFA.
It's probably half the cost of a Letterman's jacket that parents put out this Christmas, so if that. Any items that we need to remove from the consensus agenda, I'd entertain at this time. Hearing none, Mr. Simon, call the roll for approval of the consensus agenda.
Yes. Mrs. Gingrich.
Yes.
Mr. Sell.
Wait a minute, we're not removing anything, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
I'm sorry, did you have something, Mr.
No.
Okay.
Mrs. Voorhees.
Yes.
Mr. Huber.
Yes.
Mr. Flack.
Yes. Okay, having no removal of the consensus agenda, we'll jump down to number 6. And for those at home, what we need to do now is we are going to be rescinding an OFCC establishment of scope and project costs, and then submitting a new one. These are again available online if you want to look at what we're doing. Essentially, these are boilerplate forms that we need to submit to the state so that we can have a project co-funded from them if we go to the ballot box, and should that be approved, this is how we have the state co-fund that project. Currently, our numbers are at 54% of local share versus, 46% of state share, and we are going to 51% local share and 49% state share. And so obviously we want to rescind what we have and resubmit, because that's a significant difference when you're talking in a multi-million-dollar project, essentially becoming a 50-50 partner with the state in that. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to rescind the request from the OFCC, attachment number 5.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Mr. Huber and Mr. Sell. Any discussion on that?
I was going to ask if Garmin and Miller had anything to comment regarding this. I mean, publicly, is there anything that needs to be said here that we're omitting?
I think the key is just that making sure that you identify July of 2021 of when you anticipate your request for the NOCA package approval. Wayne, is there anything else you would make note of?
No, I think your explanation, it is a boilerplate. It's part of the protocols and process of OFCC, effectively rescinding the original date that you were going to accept a NOCA package, and now establishing the new future date, which is a benefit to the district.
And what we're doing is not unusual.
No, it's not. It's to your benefit. And we verified that with OFCC in a meeting, and
So essentially, because the reason we're asking July is that's when the new state formula kicks in. So it's not just that we threw a dart at the board. And specifically, in July is when we can be co-funded at 49.51. So that's why we're asking for July, because we want as much state money as possible.
Yeah. The other thing I note with that, we know that there's going to be a cost set increase to the OFCC budgets in April. They would, if they do know what that is, they're not divulging it at this point. So the timing on that is not to our advantage, but we, within your numbers, have used our best guess of what we think they're going to have those increases. So that's factored into your dollars that we're working with Mr. Sumner on.
Good.
But I just wanted to note that, and you've already are seeing an increase in the latest master plan that they showed you. There will be another increase in April.
And what Mr. Balto was talking about there, again, for those watching at home, is the state actually sets what a square footage costs. So I think there's a kind of a weekend warrior mentality of, no, I can do this cheaper. I renovated my basement for this on a project of this size and scope. The state says, no, this is what a square foot costs because we're doing billions of dollars in projects. So if you need, and then the state tells us exactly how much square footage we need. So I think people are surprised at how much say the state has, but when they're footing half the bill, that's why they have it. So when they say cost set, they tell us this is what a square footage costs. 1 square foot costs X amount, and that cost set has increased as with all things. And so we've seen a 16% increase is what we're estimating. We've seen a hard 11, and then we're estimating an additional 5, is that correct?
Correct.
And that's over just from 2019, correct?
Correct.
So.
And that's a great point too about it's a condition of being in the state program. So they're kicking in almost half the cost, but to get their money, you are agreeing to follow their conditions, which they set the price, they set the square footage.
And when Mr. Flack was saying we, and in terms of billions of dollars, he was referring possessively to the state of Ohio.
Correct.
And not the Celina School District.
No, not locally.
Not yet.
Okay, any other questions on the rescinding and submitting? If not, let's go ahead and call the roll there, Mr. Summer.
Actually, this is, the first resolution is just to rescind.
So moved. Does it take a motion then?
No.
Yeah, we're doing-
I'm sorry.
Okay, gotcha.
Just to rescind.
Okay, Mr. Huber,
Yes.
Mr. Sell,
Yes.
Mrs. Gingrich,
Yes.
Mrs. Voorhees,
Yes.
Mr. Flack.
Yes.
Now,
Now looking at number 2, this is the resubmission for the July. And so I'd entertain a motion to.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Sell. Second?
I'll second.
Mr. Huber? Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, call the roll.
Mr. Sell,
Yes.
Mr. Huber,
Yes.
Mrs. Voorhees,
Yes.
Mrs. Gingrich,
Yes.
Mr. Flack.
Yes. At this time, I'd like to have a discussion about we had Garmin Miller present last month at our regularly scheduled board meeting. That's a video that can still be seen on our Celina Schools Facebook page. Anyone can go back and see the presentation and hear the different options that were presented from the board. We need to decide as a board if we would like to move forward with a project plan to present to the voters this coming May. The reason I would like to do this tonight and why we put it on the agenda tonight is if we are going to move forward with a project, we need to give our architects, Garmin and Miller, time to get us the exact numbers that we will then submit to the county auditor, and that takes some time. And they have presented 2 different options to us, so we need to give them some clarity tonight. I also think it's important that the community hears our discussion. Obviously, we know that some people will be very supportive, some people won't. And so I think it's important that the community hears our discussion. Anytime we will be, if we choose to go forward, we'd be approving to send it to the auditor at a special meeting. And I think there can be at times, whether it's right or wrong, speculation over why it was at a special meeting. So I think it's important tonight as a board, we just have this discussion as people are tuning into the regular board meeting. So I will open the floor for my fellow colleagues to discuss or ask Armin Miller if any questions of what plan we might want to consider moving forward to present to the voters this May.
I think I would ask the superintendent, I think as a board, we pretty much know, we've had a discussion about where we want to go and where we are. Just briefly, your opinion on what's been proposed.
I think when given the two options, either the pre-K 6 or the pre-K 12, I want to go back to that election where the election was messed up, canceled the day before the election, and then in future date, who knew when we were supposed to vote? So because of all that confusion and us being so close to passing that, I think it's only right to give the voters another opportunity. We know the date of the next election is coming up on May the 4th, so they can have that set, make sure that all the voters that do want to vote, and we certainly encourage everyone to vote, that everyone actually does have that right to come out and place their ballot. We certainly felt going in like we were at a good place, the community was in a good feel, and then COVID has messed with so many things this past year. So let's give the voters that true opportunity to truly let their votes be heard.
And that's not anecdotal evidence. We can look at previous presidential primaries versus turnout versus current. We were down 15 to 20%. Now, does that mean it would have passed? Who knows? What we do know is we were down about 15 to 20% turnout.
I'd like to briefly just give my opinion about the pre-K 6 versus pre-K 12. I think if we just do a partial build, a partial plan, we are denying a certain level of students and age group opportunities that they should have. And not only that, if we would delay the expansion of the entire project, in my view, then it would delay that for many years down the road, and it would also make that eventual project that much more expensive. We're talking about inflation and price adjustment by the state of Ohio, and that's going to happen every year. So if we don't act now, the pre-K 12 idea is going to cost future taxpayers a lot more money. And we're not doing it just for that purpose. There is a definite need for the students in this district to be on par with other students in the state of Ohio.
Other thoughts as you've been considering through the building programs?
I just like to mirror that thought also. I mean, the longer history shows, as you guys can attest to, the longer you wait to build a project like this, the more money it's going to cost the community. So we've already seen a 16%, probably 60%. I wouldn't be doubtful to see a 20% increase, honestly, just because of the way materials are increasing, the way people are charging, because they don't need to work right now. Construction is off and running. So the sooner we get in, the better off our community will be spending their dollars for what we need for this community. So, and reiterate, I mean, we're one of the only, we may be the only school in the Tri-County area that has old buildings such as ours. So there is a definite need. If you don't see it, you need to go visit the schools, because it's there.
Well, in my opinion on it is that nothing has changed. We had routine maintenance, but we haven't made any improvements or anything since we asked for the levy to replace the buildings in the spring. Nothing has changed, so I think we'd be doing a disservice not to expect the same again.
And our job is to provide for the greatest opportunities that we can for the Celina School District students. That's our job.
I agree.
Gingrich, anything that you wanted to add? Or?
I think they've covered my thoughts.
Yeah,
One piece that we really didn't talk about much when we ran the last levy was the air quality in the buildings. And now that we have this virus, the pandemic going around, that's what you're hearing everywhere. So if we could get these buildings built, improve the air quality, I think that's another safety feature that would be a feather in your caps for getting this approved.
I think 2020, we're all tired of hearing how it's unprecedented, but what it did cause us to do is, all of us especially, what is the value of a classroom education in a public school? And the reason I say that is we were the 5 of us made the decision when many of our colleagues around the state were saying, keep our kids online. We listened to our community, and we also listened to what we knew to be true, that the quality and the importance of an in-classroom education is just, it can't be quantified. What a teacher does is magic. What we take a 5-year-old kindergartner coming in to an 18-year-old and hopefully show them and teach them along the way alongside of their parents and their community and coaches, it can't be quantified. And so as I've thought more and more this year, I think there are people who maybe have been dismissive in the past of a need, who suddenly this year realized how important a classroom was when they thought, man, my kid, when Governor DeWine sent the children home in March. And they learned really quickly, wow, what that teacher does in that classroom is incredible. And I understand there'll be people that say, well, we have classrooms, so just keep using the ones we have. And the truth is, yes, our teachers do wonderful things in the classrooms we have, but they are not keeping up with technology. They are not keeping up with current student needs. They don't have the power needs, the tech needs, the heating and cooling needs. And the truth is, I just think we all feel our students deserve better, that we can do better as a community. And the one thing I know, this need isn't going away. It's not going to suddenly just, well, no one cares. If there's one thing parents always are going to care about, it's their kids. So there's always going to be a hunger, and to get this taken care of, I think, would be something that's really important. And it would go a long way in reflecting the values we all have of in-person education and really putting that forward to the voter. Ultimately, the voter will be the one that decides, but it seems to our friends at Garmin & Miller that we are in agreement to move forward with the full project, the K through 12. I would ask you guys then to get those numbers. I want to just kind of share, because again, I don't want someone to say, well, they're hiding. These are our estimate numbers that it would be requesting from the community, 75 million approximately. These are very approximate numbers, but you can count on them pretty well. No more than a 37-year bond, 38-year bond. This would be approximately 7.5 mil for the building construction. The state mandates that we have an additional 0.5 mil in operations. One of the questions we often get, you're going to build these buildings and have no money to operate them. That's not true. If this levy were to pass, an operations levy would be in it. So that's going to be about 8 mil, and it's going to be around $260, $70 per $100,000 home. The note here, though, is something very important. If you're a citizen of Celina and a tax-paying citizen homeowner, you're going to see your property taxes go down this year. We have millage coming off the book. We have no debt on our facilities. We do have a small bond for TriStar with 8 other districts. But we are not paying on any other facilities right now, and there's no debt, so your property taxes are actually going to go down. So the effective increase in what you'll pay additional is substantially less. And so we will get those numbers out to the voting public as soon as we can, but I wanted to put those in here because, again, this is public information. We want people to know, but the reality is, as Mr. Bieber said, it's never going to get cheaper. And when the state is offering 49% of the project, that's a lot of money.
You really hate to think about losing that.
And so if our friends from Garmin & Miller have what they need to work with Mr. Sommer to get those numbers, what time would we like to meet on January 21st for a special board meeting? This is the date we have to meet by to get those to our county auditor for a May ballot initiative. Is there any particular time that the board would prefer? There is a Head Start organizational meeting. That's at 5:30.
So this is on a Thursday, is that right?
Correct. So my suggestion was potentially to do it at 5 p.m. Just before that other meeting. That could kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone if the board was comfortable with that.
I'm sorry, the TriStar or the Head Start meeting was at 6?
It's at 5:30.
5:30.
So I thought 5 o'clock would be more than sufficient. The reason being, we've had the discussion this evening, so we know what we're coming for that night. There shouldn't be.
I'm okay with 5 o'clock.
5 p.m.?
That'll work.
Okay. Let's go ahead and set that meeting at 5 p.m. And for those watching at home, what we'll be doing that night is voting to send a resolution. That would be the actual official vote to send something to our county auditor. Mr. Summer, am I messing up that timeline at all there?
No, the deadline is January 22nd to have it to the county auditor. And then the next week, after the county auditor returns that certificate, we'll have to have another meeting to pass a resolution authorizing me to take it to the Board of Elections. So,
Okay. So what I want
that has to be by February 3rd, so.
Okay, so before the 3rd, we have to certify that.
So I just want the voters to hear at home, we're not trying to hide anything. We are asking our architects to move forward with a K-12 plan to present to the voters in May. We'll have the exact numbers moving forward, but it is the consent of this board to move forward with that plan now. They're hearing that at our regularly scheduled meeting. What you'll see us do in the future is taking acts to execute that plan, but that plan is not set to change.
And this levy, this bond levy, is based off of previous meetings we've had for the prior vote that we just missed out on. So it's virtually the same plan, modified maybe, depending on what numbers come back.
Some need and scope may change as far as minimal, but voters will hear all that plan. But it is a K through 12, which would be a K through 6 on the west side of town, as a new 7 through 12 sitting pretty much right across the street where the current primary or the old east building sits now.
Pre-K through 12.
Pre-K.
Are we going to meet here or at the Ed Complex?
At the Ed Complex.
That's what I thought, okay.
Meet at the Ed Complex, because that is where the Head Start meeting is.
Great.
Any other questions before we move forward for our friends at Garment Miller or for the good work here?
Thank you for attending, appreciate it.
Appreciate that, and if anything comes up, please let us know, but we'll trust that you're working with Mr. Summer and getting
Did
those
you gentlemen
numbers.
have any comments you wanted to throw out there for the public? We covered?
You covered it. We'll get the financials to Mr. Summer.
All right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
At this time, in our agenda, we are going to move forward to executive session for matters of employment. I would assume we have nothing else on the agenda. I noticed some people were a little frustrated that when we move into executive session, we stay live, and they're always wondering if there's going to be anything after. According to our agenda, there's going to be nothing, so I'm going to go ahead and suggest that after
I would expect that there will be.
there will be.
Will be,
Okay, never mind. So what we will do is we will pause, that's why I'm asking. We will pause if we are approved to go into executive session here. So I will entertain a motion to move to
I'll
executive
make a motion to
session
that regard.
on grounds of employment, number 2.
So
Mr. Sell,
I'll second.
Mr. Huber.
thought it was a good
It is a
presentation.
really good training session.
We are back from executive session at 7 PM. We adjourn for the terms of employment, and we stand back in regular session at 7 PM. At this time, I'll look to Mr. Selk. He had a motion he would like to make.
Thank you, Mr. Flagg. After careful consideration and discussion with the rest of the board, I would like to make a motion to extend the superintendent and the treasurer's contract each by 1 year.
Any discussion on the, or any motion, or second to the motion? So we have Mr. Sell making that, and Mr. Huber. Now that there's been a first and a second, is there any discussion?
We would just the board would like to thank Dr. Ken and Tom for everything, especially that they've done this year. I mean, past years also, but this year especially, with everything that's been so unknown, and they've handled the situations very well. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. They've handled every situation that's come about to the best of their ability, and we're very grateful for everything they've done. So,
And I would reiterate that both of these gentlemen are on the firing line daily, and they're putting in all kinds of hours. Coming in early, leaving late, and we haven't missed that. And that's the primary reason for this motion.
And they've handled it with grace.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you both.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
nope.
Well, we've got a first and a second, and so we will call a vote. Mr. Summer?
Mr. Sell,
Yes.
Mr. Huber,
Yes.
Mrs. Gingrich,
Yes.
Mrs. Voorhees.
Yes?
Mr. Flagg.
Yes. Motion passes. We appreciate that, gentlemen. Thank you. Is there any other discussion that anyone has at this time?
Quick comment, we love all of our sports, we love winter sports, but a special nod to Celina Wrestling and Celina Bowling are doing extremely well right now.
Good job.
Both teams in bowling are 11-1 right now.
That's fantastic.
That's
The
great.
boys are 5-0 in WBL, and the girls are 4-1.
Do you have a record for wrestling?
I think wrestling is undefeated.
That's
in
pretty
the
much
WBL
undefeated,
as
yes.
well.
They haven't lost a match.
And they've done extremely well at their tournaments. They've represented Celina very well.
That's quite a program they built up.
Yes, it
Yes,
is.
it
I
is.
agree.
Both,
Very
both.
Both, yes, both.
That you-
Well,
Especially
we
when you're
stand
here.
adjourned, and our first comment after adjournment, go Bucks.
Yeah.
There you
Thank
go.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, yours is such a young